Right, so let's talk about what you just heard. This mess of wires and boxes you see on the screen, if you're not familiar with it, this is called a patcher. It's a sort of a computer program or a script that's built visually. That is, instead of going into some kind of a text editor and typing in computer code to get the computer to do what I want, I just sort of pull up a blank grid space like this, and I can put together boxes and wire them together to get the computer to do what I want. So for example, I'm whipping up a really simple patcher that just produces a pure sine tone. The first box at the top, cycle 440, produces a 440 hertz sine tone at full volume. The box in the middle is just a volume control, and I can route the full volume sine tone into it. And then I can route the volume controlled sine tone out to my speakers. And just like that, I've got a simple computer program that just makes a sine tone at any volume that I want. You can see that when I control the volume here, in real time, it'll pop out a pure sine tone. Now this is a really basic example of what Max can do, but pretty much that concept is how I built all of this. Now Max is a visual programming or visual scripting system. It's what I use to build this patcher. It's produced by a company called Cycling 74, and it's used by a lot of audio programmers and computer musicians to do anything from prototyping audio tech to making synthesizers or setting up crazy cool live performance scenarios. It can interface with pretty much anything that you can plug into your computer. For example, I saw a student on YouTube from Georgia Southern University. He rigged up a pair of high-tech gloves using Max, and he was using it to control a virtual orchestra just using hand gestures. It was some real Minority Report style stuff. Max is able to handle 3D graphics. It can do video editing. DJs have been known to use Max to control the lighting and control effects at their shows, at their venues. And so basically, this little patcher that you're looking at here, it's not even scratching the surface of what Max can do. So if you're into this sort of thing, or if you're just looking for something cool to watch on the internet, I'd recommend heading over to cycling74.com and checking out the Max product page. There's a page on there that says Made with Max, and you can actually see some of these crazy cool creations I've been talking about. Anyway, this particular patcher that I just showed you is an example of what's called a resequencer. That is, it's a patcher that takes audio files and shuffles them around in real time to make something. Now, I did have to compose this music, but instead of making a fixed track that you might play on your iPod, I composed a bunch of little segments that can fit together like Legos, and those are located here. Now, there's 41 of these guys, and each one of them contains one layer of this music doing one thing. For example, drum layer 1 here sounds like this. Which is basically a measure's worth of hi-hat. Drum layer 3, on the other hand, sounds like this. With this rapid kind of drum sound. Now, when the patcher gets fired up, it constantly stitches together these files in different sequences, resequencing them to produce what you hear. And from there, you can probably see by now the gist of how all of this works. Now, while most of these audio segments do different things, some of them do exactly the same thing, and they're just redundant copies of each other. For example, let's compare trump arp A1.wave and trump arp A2.wave. I'll pull those up down here. And trump arp A2. And as you can tell, these are exactly the same lick. The trumpets are playing exactly the same phrase, but there are subtle variations between them. One of the trumpets puts a little bit more force on certain notes than the other one does. Having both of these files with subtle pressure and timing differences between the performances is designed to address a problem called machine gunning, which is where things start to sound fake if you loop a sound repeatedly. So for the trumpets here, I'll often have them play this arpeggio several times in a row. And if I want it to be at least plausible that a real trumpet player could have played this, I need to have subtle, if nearly imperceptible, differences over time. So the resequencer does this by randomly alternating between these files, and there are all kinds of other examples doing the same thing throughout this piece. Now, this is not by any means a Max tutorial. It's just an upload and explanation of one of my first Max student projects, but I encourage everyone who wants to learn to pick this apart. As soon as I've got an upload location figured out, I'll put a download link in the description so that anybody who wants to destroy this thing can do so. However, like I said, I'm new to Max myself, so this should not be considered anything besides a student project. There are plenty of ways you can improve it. You could declutter it, for one. You can make it do cool new things. But I encourage everybody who's interested to take some time out of their lives and go ahead and try doing cool things like this on their own. And Happy New Year, everybody.